right, good morning, everybody. It is Thursday, February 1st, 2024. Let's go ahead and take a look at the last day of January here, and we'll get into our pre-market for this morning. So yesterday, in my opinion, was a pretty easy day. It was a clear picture for the bears, and we talked about it, right, in our pre-market and in the report, that there were a lot of signs for the pullback. The question was going to be if we could get down below some key levels to confirm that bias. And so let's go back, make sure I'm on the right day here. Some pretty good volume as well. You know, some days I can just scroll back one pull and we're all the way back to the open on the 512. This has got a lot more action yesterday. So pretty good volume on the sell-off. And remember that the first thing that we were looking at for the bulls was to get back up through the previous daily low and then back up through 50% of the day before that. And if that didn't happen, I told you guys, especially if the bulls couldn't get through the previous daily low for starters, it was going to be a clear picture as to what we wanted to do. So the market opened. In fact, let's just look at what happened just before the market opened here, coming from the day before. It was, again, a stair step down our levels. So the high of the day before yesterday was our scaffolding level. It was one tick away. So we tagged into it. We talked about seeing it tag previous daily high and then coming right to the scaffolding and failing just like it did the day before. And then that began this nice rally lower, or failure lower, I should say. And from there, I mean, it did tag 50% the previous day, but that wasn't there technically on the day before, right? But kind of looking at it coming into this day, held the scaffolding, held 50% of the previous day, held the back end of the 200, held the back end of the previous daily low coming into the open yesterday, and then held the back end of Hopel. So, I mean, it was literally one by one coming down. And then again, this is just after the open yesterday. We come up and we fail right off the Hopel. So there's another day. Here's another example of a day where we rally right into Hopel and get a major reversal. All right, so holds Hopel, comes down, and then that's why I said this was a pretty easy day. Once you saw the hold from the back end of Hopel and then the fall below VWAP and the beginning of the chug lower, it should have been a pretty clear situation. Right, so there were good opportunities to get short on the way down, definitely more aggressive trades, and that's why I tell you, when we're in an aggressive push like we were yesterday with all that volume to the bearish side of things, you got to play the back end of the FMA. Now, we did get a really nice tag back into the 200, I believe, or into the VWAP at one point. This would have been probably a really good short off the back end of our scaffolding, the 200, just didn't work. So they popped it through. And then where did we find support after the huge rally lower? Right at 50% of last week. There's a reason we watch some of these critical retracements on different time frames. And that's another beautiful example. If you wanted to be a counter trader yesterday, buying 50% of the previous week, which I told you was going to be an important line in the sand, would have gave you a nice, beautiful 10, 12-point bounce, probably just about 10 points there, just over 10 points. You even got two bounces off of it, so two opportunities nearly to the tick with very limited risk on those. And then they came up and held VWAP with a beautiful bearish divergence on our 512. So a great opportunity to continue to trade in the direction of the trend for the day and our bias. And then you can see there was some trouble right off the back end of the scaffolding. Again, kind of continuing in the fashion of tagging the back end of our roadmap levels as price continued to fall lower. Now, did it work out perfectly that once it got through this scaffolding level that it came to it on the first test and failed lower? No, it was a little bit messy, but eventually they came back to tag it and try to chug lower. And then there was a lot of trouble again. For all intents and purposes, yeah, it did duck down 5, 6, 7 points below, maybe even 10 points. No, yeah, 6, 7 points below, but was still having trouble getting through 50% of the previous week. So it kind of looked like at least if we were watching this in real time, seeing this kind of come back and get back through VWAP here, it almost looked like it was a perfect 50% retrace of last week for the bulls to then attempt to defend and go ahead and pop higher. But then what happened? We tagged right into the back end of the scaffolding at 27 there, and then that was it for that attempt by the bulls to rally higher. Right? It almost came all the way back to our hopeful like it did here at the open. Right? And then from there, again, just another beautiful tag off the back end of our roadmap level in a bearish market that you could have grabbed some more money onto the downside. You even got a really nice failure off of one of our roadmap levels, the cross back down through VWAP, our crossover, and a tag one tick in front of the 200 there if you missed that one. So there were great little opportunities to continue on the bearish side of things once this failure happened. And then from there, you can see how aggressively the price rode the back end of the FMA all the way down to our next roadmap level and found support only to tag the back end of our next scaffolding level and push lower. So again, nearly every day is a game of ping pong back and forth between our levels. And, it's very discrete. There's really no argument that, we really are tagging into these levels within a point or two or a couple ticks and finding the major rotations throughout the day. So no excuses for not finding really good entries. And that's why I said yesterday was pretty easy. Now, you're not going to get every single tag perfectly and every bounce, but there are great opportunities happening all day long. And then at the end of the day, we came down. Nothing really sexy over there at that 73. In fact, we're pretty much done with that level this morning after yesterday. And that was it. We closed out. Now, we came down just in front of our pocket. So if I go up to my higher time frames here and we look at the major zones of expected rotations, remember, the expected major rotation at the high of this week was exactly where we rotated. And then we came down, and like I said, just in front of, and this was yesterday, our low of yesterday here, that green line, just in front of that next major pocket we expected to see a rotation off of. So, hey, it was like a 3-4 point little zone. We bounced just in front of it. It is what it is. For all intents and purposes, I think we basically got the rotation we would want to see. Maybe this morning we'll come back in and actually tag right into this, maybe even right into the scaffolding and get maybe another bounce from. We'll have to see, right? But basically bouncing right at the next major zone of expected rotation or expected support. And then let's go back over. And then that was it. So that's the low of the day there. And again, we had a little pocket here just about right in front of it here where we expected there to be another potential bounce, in the larger, from the higher time frame perspective. So we got the bounce just in front of it. I'm not going to claim that we actually hit it, but we've rotated, and now here we are coming into the open this morning, and we're getting a little bit of a retracement of this whole sell-off from yesterday. Now, we sold off, let me just take a look. We sold off about from the high of the week, from 49.57, almost 100 points lower, right? So this is just a very minor bounce so far, but we are, for whatever it's worth, holding up above VWAP right now and contending with that scaffolding level that we failed with from the day before. So that's where we are coming into the open this morning. Let's go ahead and jump up to the higher time frame. See